Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stop the Money Pipeline's Wall Street Moment of Truth, People or Fossil Fuels campaign rally. I am Jackie Fielder. I am a co-director of Stop the Money Pipeline. And today I'm also joined by Erika. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Erika Thi Patterson. I'm with the Action Center on Race and the Economy as our campaign director for climate and environmental justice. Pass it back to you, Jackie.
Yeah. Well, thanks all for coming on to tonight's rally. Really excited to, tonight we're going to amplify the voices of tens of thousands of bank customers who are demanding that their banks stop funding fossil fuels, going to take action together to demand that banks, insurance companies, and investors take meaningful action this shareholder season. And we'll also be learning from the top movement researchers about the key findings from the brand new Banking on Climate Chaos 2022 report. And we will be joined by a powerful lineup of speakers, including Nemo Guiquita of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, Roishetta Ozane with Healthy Gulf, and Third Act founder Bill McKibben. As I introduce myself, I'm Jackie Fielder, joined by Erika Thi Patterson, and want to thank our event co-sponsors, Rainforest Action Network, Sierra Club, Amazon Watch, and of course, Stop the Money Pipeline. Just a note, there is language interpretation and translation available. You can just select at the bottom right of your screen which language you would like to hear, English or Spanish. And wanted to also give a shout out to the People's Echo, which is a Seattle-based song group writing original music for the climate movement. And we'll hear two more of their songs during the rally, and they have a SoundCloud you should definitely follow. And I know that someone will put the link in the chat. But yeah, I'll pass it to Erika.
Thank you, Jackie. On that note, I have to start off by saying that opening music was fire. Folks should definitely check out People's Echo and stay tuned for more songs throughout the program. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight. It's such an honor to be co-hosting the event with my good friend and movement sister, Jackie. We are excited to bring you all an action-packed program tonight. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers from across our movement that we can't wait for you to hear from. And yeah, we're both just super grateful for y'all to be joining us this evening. We know that everyone's so busy and that many of us are battling Zoom fatigue these days. So it means a lot to us for you to choose to spend this next hour with us. Before we dive into our speaking program, we are opening up this event by grounding us in a land acknowledgement. And so to begin this, I'll start off by sharing that I'm joining you all today from stolen Gabrielino land. Others may know this land as Tongva, Peach, and Gabrielino land, or so-called Los Angeles. And as I'm moving through this acknowledgement, I invite you all to share the name of the land that you're calling in from. If you're not sure of whose land you're on, you can take a look at that by clicking on the link that's being dropped in the chat. And as we begin today's event, we recognize the history of colonization, genocide, broken treaties, and forced relocation by the United States government of Native peoples across Turtle Island. We also recognize that Native peoples are still here and are here to stay, with more than 600 sovereign nations living within the borders of the US alone. And we must also recognize that federal and state governments, corporations, and other entities continue to violate treaties and challenge the sovereignty of these independent nations every day. We also acknowledge the legacy of enslavement in this country and the enslaved African people whose labor was exploited for generations to establish the wealth and foundation of the United States. We also recognize that the gruesome legacy of enslavement and the racist laws and practices that continue to be passed and implemented impact our culture and our institutions at every level today. And we acknowledge our nation continues to profit financially from the deliberate exploitation of the descendants of enslaved African people. We acknowledge that the history of the US is one of colonialism and white supremacy. And by recognizing that the land was taken from its original stewards and recognizing the forced labor that was provided by enslaved African people and Black people, we acknowledge the foundation of the US and the roots that it created in order to grow and thrive are in fact based in colonialism, racism, and abuse. And it is only by recognizing and understanding these atrocities that were committed as part of our country's origin story that we can even begin to repair past harms and to prevent them from being committed in the future. So please all join me in honoring Black and Indigenous people's contributions to this country and ongoing stewardship of the lands, waterways, and air that we rely on. We honor and celebrate their resilience, and we commit to creating a future founded on respect and healing our deepest generational wounds by really building bridges and mutual understanding. Let us continue to commit to re-educate ourselves about the histories and experiences of all peoples in our own communities and across Turtle Island. And as I close out, please remember that land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or in historical contexts. Colonialism and white supremacy are still alive and deeply embedded in all facets of US institutions. And we need to build up our mindfulness of our present participation in upholding harmful and oppressive systems. So thank you all for listening. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Erica, for that land acknowledgement. A reminder to folks in the chat, you can actually send your chat message to everyone. You just have to select everyone in the to line in the chat. That makes sense, because there are some messages just going to hosts and panelists. But yeah, again, this is the Wall Street's Moment of Truth, People or Fossil Fuels campaign. And over the next hour or so, we'll explain how you can take action right now to push Wall Street financial institutions, insurance companies to commit to not financing any expansion of fossil fuel projects. And I'm actually going to pass it back to Erica.
I think you passed it over to me, Jackie. My internet cut out, but please bear with us, folks. Thanks for the overview, Jackie. And all right, with that, we're going to kick things off with a message from climate champion, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who wishes she could be here with us tonight, but is not able to. So let's hear what she had to say for us.
Hello, everyone. I sure wish I could be with you in person, but I'm sure glad to have a chance to be here to talk about this critical new report. I want to start, though, by thanking this coalition for your tireless work on the Banking on Climate Chaos report. This report shows us the shocking degree to which Wall Street is financing fossil fuels and driving the climate crisis. The historic Paris Climate Agreement was signed 6 years ago, but since it was signed, the world's 60 biggest banks have poured $4.6 trillion into fossil fuel financing. The 4 banks that have financed the most fossil fuels, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America, those four together have lent and underwritten more than $1.1 trillion in fossil fuels since 2016. And JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon, they take the cake as the world's worst bankrollers of climate chaos for another year running. But these very same banks have been patting themselves on the back for meaningless climate pledges that rely on accounting tricks and half-truths so they can pretend that they've cut the greenhouse gas emissions associated with their lending. This so-called corporate greenwashing has been described as the new climate denialism. It lets giant banks get great headlines without actually doing the serious work that we need to protect our environment. And that means making empty promises while continuing to pour trillions of dollars into oil and gas companies and expanding investments in cryptocurrencies, an incredibly dirty business. We're at a point where Bitcoin alone consumes as much energy as entire countries like Norway. And a single Bitcoin transaction, one transaction, consumes as much power as the typical US household consumes over 75 days. So the more that banks get involved with crypto, the worse the climate crisis gets. You know, the science is clear. Climate change is an existential threat to every living thing on this earth. We need bold action, and we need it now. We don't need more empty promises and more accounting tricks. We must make Wall Street banks disclose the full scale of their fossil fuel financing and take accountability for the consequences of their actions. So, to everyone in this coalition, thank you for uncovering the massive scale of fossil fuel financing by giant banks. We need all of you to continue pushing on this so the giant banks can't get away with what they're doing.
All right. Thank you, Senator Warren, for sharing this message with our coalition and for your continued partnership around holding Wall Street accountable for bankrolling the fossil fuel industry and climate chaos. Senator Warren's message is a perfect segue into our first speaker, Allison Kirsch. Allison is the Research and Policy Manager of the Rainforest Action Network's Climate and Energy Program. She's going to give you an overview of the key findings from this year's amazing Banking on Climate Chaos report. Welcome, Allison. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Great. Thanks, Erika. Thank you all so much for being here. As Erika said, if we could go to the next slide, I'm going to talk through the findings, thank you, of our report just out the other week that pulls back the veil and shows us what banks don't report on themselves, which is their fueling of the climate crisis from their bankrolling of fossil fuels. Next slide. So here's what we found. We looked at fossil fuel financing from the world's biggest banks, 60 of them, over the last 6 years since the Paris Agreement was adopted in late 2015. And we found that these 60 banks poured $4.6 trillion into fossil fuels over that time. That's trillion with a T. It's an unfathomably large number. And the other thing I want to point out is you can see here, fossil fuel financing last year basically plateaued from the year before, which of course is not the right direction when we know how rapidly we need to be phasing out of a fossil fuel economy given the climate crisis. And fossil financing in the last few years, 2020 and 2021, was still higher than in 2016 and 2017, which again were the years right after the Paris Agreement came into force. Next slide. So Senator Warren gave us a great preview of who's who are the worst of the worst in this banking field. And as she said, JP Morgan Chase is still the worst by a significant margin, followed by other household names like Citi, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. The US banks really dominate fossil fuel financing, but you can see there's three major Canadian banks on here as well, led by RBC, as well as the Japanese banking giants like MUFG and Barclays from Europe. And as I mentioned, in a world where overall fossil fuel financing from these 60 banks was basically flat last year, the banks who actually increased their funding for the sector should be particularly embarrassed. And the worst banks by that metric are some of our favorites: Wells Fargo, RBC, Scotiabank, CIBC from Canada, and JP Morgan Chase. All increased their fossil fuel financing by more than $10 billion last year over the previous year. Next slide. So there's a lot of ways that this hypocrisy has played out last year. And I want to highlight one, which is last year was a year in which banks talked a really big game on climate. One thing that you might have heard is banks saying that they're going to reach net zero emissions by 2050. We know that to actually reach net zero emissions by 2050 and to align with a climate stable future where climate chaos is limited to 1.5 degrees, we cannot afford to build new coal mines or plants or oil and gas fields or LNG projects. We can't afford any new fossil fuel infrastructure. We've got to work with what we've already dug up. And yet, these are just a few examples, and trust me, there's plenty I could have pulled out, of the biggest banks saying one thing, that they're going to get to this goal of net zero by 2050, and then turning around and doing another by funding some of the companies that are doing the most in the opposite direction. So again, just a few examples: Gazprom, BP, ExxonMobil, Qatar Energy. These are some of the companies that are doing the most to dig up new oil and gas that we absolutely don't need. And banks like Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Citi funded them immediately after saying that they were going to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Next slide. Now, we know, I think everyone on this call knows, that these are more than just numbers. This fossil fuel financing touches down in real communities, impacting people all over the world. And our speakers later in today's webinar are going to speak about some of the examples of bank financing impacting their communities. So this map is just meant to show only a few dozen of the projects and companies that banks are financing around the world that, again, are threatening people's livelihoods, water, air, and communities are fighting back. So really excited to hear from Nemo and Roishetta in a little bit on this webinar. Next slide. And I'll close by saying that you too can find out who's banking the fossil fuel projects and companies in your community. I encourage you to take a look at the report's website, which has a ton of interactive data on it. But this place in particular that I'm showing here, you can select a bank and see its top fossil fuel clients, or you could select a fossil fuel company and see its top banks. So, again, we really hope this information is in service to all of you that are fighting to protect our planet from these big banks. And we want to make sure, if the banks won't report on it themselves, that we will make sure people know who they're funding and how dirty those clients are. So thanks again, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much, Allison, for that awesome presentation, and for Rainforest Action Network and all the other amazing partners for working on that report. Next up, we have Roishetta, who I have the honor of introducing. And Roishetta Ozane currently works as a clean energy organizer for Southwest Louisiana and Southeast Texas with Healthy Gulf, organizing against liquefied natural gas and petrochemical industry buildout. She is a She Leads Fellow for the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, where she empowers other women of color to go out into their communities and make a positive change. A member of the McNeese Black Alumni Association, a member of NAUW, a participatory working group member for the Hive Fund, and a town hall facilitator for Gulf South for a Green New Deal. Roishetta is the founder of the Vessel Project of Louisiana, a small mutual aid organization located in Southwest Louisiana that was founded in the aftermath of several disasters that ravaged Southwest Louisiana. She's the founder of For Black Moms, a Facebook community for Black moms, one of the 10 founders of Black Breastfeeding Mamas Circle, a social media community for teaching the importance of breastfeeding and assisting moms on their breastfeeding journey as a certified breastfeeding specialist. She has an associate's degree in business from Strayer University, a bachelor's in general studies from McNeese State University, and is currently pursuing her master's in criminal justice at McNeese. Above all, and most importantly, Roishetta is a mom to 6 very special children whom she loves and adores, and for whom she's trying to save this world. Thank you so much, Roishetta, for joining us.
Hey everyone. I know my bio is long, but it serves a purpose. And so whenever I'm in spaces like this, I like to let people see how connected I am in the community, because when I'm speaking, I want you to understand that I represent several people in the community. I'm one person, but I'm very involved. I do a lot of things in my community, and I speak with a lot of people every day. And so when I stand here or when I'm speaking, I'm representing those folks that I'm talking with, that I'm working with, that I'm helping every day here in the community, who may feel like they don't have a voice, or they are afraid to speak out for whatever reason. Maybe they work for these industries, maybe their family members work there. So that's the reason for including all of those things in my bio, so that you see that the dynamic of what I do in the community. The main thing that I do 90% of the time is fight against oil and gas, because here in Southwest Louisiana, that's what we're infiltrated with. We have oil and gas on every side and every corner, Southwest Louisiana and Southeast Texas. Every day I'm out trying to educate the folks here in Lake Charles and surrounding areas about the petrochem and LNG facilities. People have a false narrative that they've been given, that LNG is good for them and is healthier for the planet. And I'm trying to get folks to understand that LNG, there's nothing natural about it. And liquefying the gas releases methane, which is one of the most dangerous of the greenhouse gas emissions. And just educating people. We will no longer sit idly by and be a climate sacrifice zone. Dr. Martin Luther King fought for equality, but I am fighting for equity. We fought to be here. We have a right to be here. We have fought for education. We have fought for the right to vote. As a Black woman, being at the bottom of the totem pole of all of the industry, at the bottom of everything, I'm still fighting, and I'm tired of fighting. I no longer want to fight every day. I want to sit down at the table and break these individual problems up and see how we can solve individual pieces of this large oil and gas problem. The people here in Southwest Louisiana believe when the industries tell them things like, they're producing more jobs, they're helping the economy here, but yet you come here and you drive around through the city. You all probably see me in a car, because I'm always giving toxic tours, and I just gave a tour to a lady who came here from New York. But the industry has people here food like they're doing so much for our city. But if you come here, you'll think you're in a third world country. There's still blue tarps on roofs from the 2 hurricanes, Laura and Delta. We also had winter freeze Uri. We had a 100-year biblical flood, where if you didn't lose anything in the hurricanes and the freeze, you lost it during the flood. But yet we're still funding industry. And so my plea is that these big banks, if they care about us little people who put our money and deposit our money into their banks, that they will stop funding these industries who come here and they make money off of our backs, and then they leave us out to dry. Our leaders here in Southwest Louisiana and in Louisiana altogether are steadily allowing LNG facilities and petrochem facilities to come here and making empty promises while people here are suffering. The folks here don't have clean drinking water. Sulphur, Louisiana, if you Google it, you will see that we're fighting to get the citizens in Sulphur, Louisiana, clean drinking water in 2022 in an area where we have numerous LNG export terminals, numerous petrochem facilities. People don't have clean drinking water. This is a sportsman's paradise state. That's our logo. And folks can't even fish and hunt safely in this state because no one wants to eat the fish that comes out of the water near an LNG and petrochem facility. So that's my plea. And I'm standing here for all of the community members that I'm with every day, whether it's fighting oil and gas, whether it's helping them to pay their rent through my organization, the Vessel Project, or whatever I'm doing with those community members. And we're having those conversations and they're tired. They're tired of fighting to live, tired of fighting for clean air, tired of fighting to sleep at night because the sky is lit up with flares. And when they wake up in the morning, instead of seeing a beautiful sunset, they're seeing smokestacks. And so that's why I'm here before you all. And I just thank you all so much for giving me this platform, for steadily uplifting community voices. I always say that the people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And I am here as a community member in an environmental justice community, in a climate justice community, fighting to stop this oil and gas build out along the Gulf Coast so that we can enjoy this land that we fought to be on. We deserve to be here. We deserve to breathe clean air. We deserve to have clean drinking water, and we deserve to have somewhere safe to stay. So thank you all again.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Roishetta, and for all of your powerful work that you're doing for your community to stop LNG build out in the Gulf. We are hearing your plea loud and clear, and we are ready to take action. 100% agree that people living closest to the sources of pollution truly hold the solutions that we need, and we're listening. So thank you again for all your hard work. And yes, please shower Roishetta with love in the chat. Keep it coming. All right, folks. So now you've just heard about some of the harms of the fossil fuel industry on our climate, but also in frontline communities like Roishetta's. You've also heard about the big banks funding this harm, big US banks. So now it is time for us to take some action to show the Wall Street CEOs that they are on notice and that they need to stop funding climate destruction and environmental racism. We have, at this point, 417 people on this call right now. So let's see if we can at least get 300 emails to Jamie Dimon and the other Wall Street Bank CEOs. All you need to do is click the link that's going to be showing up in the chat, and it will take you right to a page that will send a direct message to the top executives at US banks and insurance companies. And like I said, our goal is to send at least 300 direct emails, but let's see if we can do more and make sure that their inboxes, the CEO's inboxes, are just flooded with hundreds of emails by tomorrow morning, demanding that they stop funding fossil fuels. So again, click on this link in the chat and take action now. And as everyone is taking action, I'm going to tee up our next speaker. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Nemo Gikita. Nemo is the Director of Women and Health for the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, which represents 1,500 different communities of Amazonian nationalities. Nemo is a member of the Wairani Nation, and her community is located in the Yasuni National Park, which is an area that's been designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve since 1989. Let's give it up for Nemo. Welcome.
Hola, mi nombre es Nemo Guiquita, soy indígena de la nacionalidad Waorani. Actualmente soy dirigente de Mujer y Familia en la CONFENIAI. La CONFENIAI representa a 11 nacionalidades y 23 organizaciones en la región amazónica del Ecuador. El impacto del petróleo en nuestros territorios afecta directamente a las comunidades, causando daño a la salud de nuestras mujeres y niños. Nosotras las mujeres indígenas somos las guardianas de la selva, somos quienes cuidamos la tierra, los ríos, las montañas y producimos nuestros alimentos cuidando la tierra. Para nosotros la selva no es un pozo petrolero, tampoco una mina de oro. Para nosotros la selva significa la vida. Para nosotros la selva significa nuestro hogar, donde crecemos y cuidamos el medio ambiente, donde cuidamos a nuestros animales, donde nacimos y crecimos con un río limpio, con las montañas limpias. Entonces hoy pedimos a las grandes empresas que hacen tanto daño a nuestros territorios que paren. Actualmente, Guillermo Lasso, el presidente de Ecuador, ha firmado 2 decretos que está condenando a nuestros territorios. La primera es el decreto 95 para ampliar los pozos petroleros en la Amazonía. De esta manera está condenando a nuestros territorios a la destrucción de la selva a través de la empresa petrolera Petroecuador. Y el decreto 151 para el ingreso y ampliación de la minería en nuestros territorios. La destrucción está empezando. Nosotros los pueblos indígenas estamos constantemente amenazados por estos decretos que ya están en vigencia y están destruyendo. A nombre del desarrollo, nuestros territorios están siendo sacrificados. Pedimos justicia, justicia ante los ojos del mundo, justicia para nuestros territorios, justicia para los luchadores de medio ambiente, justicia para nuestros líderes que han sido asesinados a nombre del desarrollo y están sacrificando nuestros territorios, las grandes empresas petroleras, y actualmente estamos sufriendo también por la empresa de las minerías que está destruyendo las áreas verdes que tenemos en nuestra selva. También uno de los lugares donde Petroecuador está perforando es el Yasuní, donde están nuestras comunidades guaraníes, donde habitan miles de animales, miles de ríos limpios, pero actualmente la reserva de biosfera Yasuní está catalogada como una de las zonas con mayor diversidad por metro cuadrado del planeta. Y está siendo destruido porque actualmente ahí viven nuestros hermanos Taromenán y Tagueiri, que están siendo violentados porque están ingresando las empresas petroleras, están ampliando las carreteras y están dañando su hogar, su hábitat. Entonces pedimos que paren a las grandes empresas que están financiando, los bancos que están financiando a estas empresas petroleras que están destruyendo, porque con la llegada de las empresas petroleras se abren las carreteras y están invadiendo nuestro espacio de vida y destruyendo todo a su paso. Citigroup es uno de los únicos bancos estadounidenses que ha financiado a Petroecuador, quien está destruyendo nuestra selva. Además, en los últimos años, Citigroup ha suministrado $1,000 millones al gobierno de Ecuador, por lo menos 970 millones de industria petrolera nacional de nuestro país, causando daño enorme a nuestra selva. Condenamos a Citigroup porque es un grupo cómplice en el sufrimiento y devastación de nuestros territorios indígenas que estamos en la Amazonía ecuatoriana. Todos los bancos tienen que dejar de financiar el petróleo y el gas en la Amazonía y dejar de financiar la expansión petrolera en cualquier parte del mundo, porque traen sufrimiento y muerte en los territorios y nos causan un enorme daño a nuestra selva. Pedimos a nuestra audiencia también a nivel mundial que firmen la petición para que Citigroup y Chis excluyan petróleo amazónico de sus portafolios de inversión para salvar nuestra selva, porque la selva es lo único que tenemos los pueblos indígenas. Los territorios amazónicos son nuestra vida, son nuestro hogar. No podemos seguir permitiendo que por intereses de dinero, de la economía, se siga destruyendo nuestra Amazonía, nuestra selva. Pedimos a los grandes líderes que tienen que apoyar a los pueblos indígenas a salvar la tierra, a salvar el planeta, porque nosotros somos lo que damos mucha zona verde, pero sin embargo, ¿por qué los pueblos indígenas estamos solos aquí luchando contra estas grandes empresas que están haciendo daño a nuestros territorios? Pedimos que tienen que abrir los ojos a nivel mundial, lo que está sucediendo, tienen que ver lo que está sucediendo en nuestros territorios, el daño, lo que está causando impacto negativo en nuestros territorios, las empresas petroleras, las causas y muchas muertes son, muchas muertes de nuestras mujeres y niños que están viviendo en nuestros territorios por la contaminación del río, por la contaminación. Ya no podemos sembrar más nuestras chacras, no podemos sembrar nuestro alimento porque ya la tierra no está sirviendo. Tampoco podemos tener pescado de nuestros ríos porque se están muriendo, porque hay un derrame constante en nuestros territorios por las empresas petroleras que están haciendo daño, y las comunidades que viven cerca están siendo contaminadas y solo hay muerte y destrucción y pobreza en las comunidades que son cerca a las empresas petroleras. También pedimos a nuestros oyentes que hagan donaciones para apoyar a nuestras comunidades indígenas que estamos aquí en Ecuador. Pedimos que también cada uno, en cada parte de cada rincón del mundo, deben escuchar y replicar estos mensajes de los líderes amazónicos para que paren de destruir las grandes empresas de nuestros territorios. El daño que están causando es enorme. Los pueblos indígenas estamos doblemente sufriendo actualmente en Ecuador por la ampliación de los decretos que pone el presidente, sin importar la vida de los pueblos indígenas. Nosotros, como pueblos indígenas, pedimos que apoyen a esta lucha que está constantemente sufriendo los pueblos indígenas. Y pedimos que tienen que parar ya y pedimos justicia para nuestros territorios, justicia para el cambio climático.
Muchas gracias, Nemo, por sus palabras. Thank you so much, Nemo, for your words. Lots of support in the chat. Now we will move on to, oh, my video wasn't on. Thank you so much, Nemo. And now we will move on to take action. So people have been dropping in the chat a link to sign the No Amazon Drilling petition. Feel free to open that up and take a second to sign that. And then we're also going to be fundraising tonight for one of the organizations, sorry. That will be in the link in the chat as well. Yes, so our goal is to raise $5,000 for the Vessel Project and for the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon. You can donate at the link. And if the short links aren't working, our team is going to be dropping in longer links. I'll let you all take a second to take those actions. Thank you so much for signing the petition and for donating. We'll continue to update you about how we're doing throughout the event. And now we're going to hear from one of our other big Wall Street's Moment of Truth champions in Congress, Representative Roishetta Tlaib. We'll be having a video message.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Roishetta Tlaib. Thank you so much, Sierra Club, for allowing me to share space with all of you today. And thank you for releasing this comprehensive and alarming Banking on Climate Chaos report. Our planet is staring down a point of no return, and the world's largest financial institutions are pouring gasoline on the fire. If our planet warms 2 degrees Celsius, the damage will be irreparable. Extreme weather events will be the new normal. Our communities will flood and our economy will be underwater. These are facts. In my district, we've seen the effects of the climate crisis firsthand. So-called 100-year floods are now occurring with alarming frequency. Over the summer, we actually had one-day rainfall that was worse than a 1,000-year rainfall. Our water system didn't even have projections for an event like that. The threats we face from climate change are no longer hypothetical. We are experiencing them right now, and it's only going to get worse. The world's largest financial institutions don't get to make hollow, quote, net zero commitments and pledge to align with the Paris Agreement targets while pumping $742 billion into the fossil fuel industry during last year alone. This defies all logic, and scientific evidence are at our disposal. We know the only way to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 Celsius is by 2050 is to stop financing new fossil fuel extraction projects now. So what have the big banks done? They've provided $4.6 trillion in fossil fuel financing in the 6 years since the Paris Agreement was signed, and we're going in the wrong direction. Relying on self-governance and foresight of the big banks didn't work in 2008, and it certainly won't work now. The big banks have made a lot of big promises, but they're worthless without action. So I'm proud to partner with the Sierra Club and countless other organizations fighting for a whole of government response to the climate crisis. And this report underscores just how urgent this fight is. Again, thank you, and you will always have a partner and a fighter in the United States Congress.
Thank you to our friends at the Sierra Club for organizing this video. And thank you so much to Representative Tlaib for your support of Stop the Money Pipeline's partners and members. We appreciate our coalition's partnership with you and your continued leadership to work with us to end Wall Street's financing of fossil fuels once and for all. And now I'm going to hand the mic over to our next speaker, Sarah Lassoff. Sarah is the campaign manager for the Customers for Climate Justice campaign, which literally just launched today. Super exciting. Sarah has been doing a ton of incredible organizing of JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, and other Wall Street bank customers. And now we're going to hear from her about the Customers for Climate Justice campaign and prepare to take some more action. Over to you, Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am so excited to be with you all today of all days because our campaign just launched today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our campaign first before I tell you this amazing milestone that we've reached. But basically, Customers for Climate Justice is organizing customers of Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citibank to advocate for climate justice at their financial institution. And we've been organizing customers since last October, and it has all led up to today where we have over 35,000 customers of these 4 banks that are now demanding that their bank stops funding fossil fuels and deforestation. This is a huge moment, and we are really showing the banks that customers care and are noticing that these banks are gaslighting us, that on one hand, they claim to be net zero by 2050, but on the other hand, are funneling billions, trillions into the fossil fuel industry and the deforestation industry. So today was our campaign launch where we announced that over 35,000 customers are now demanding that their bank stops funding fossil fuels and deforestation. And part of our launch, we also sent out emails to the CEOs of these banks with letters attached to each of these banks with the thousands of customer signatures. So in each email, we had like 200 to 300 pages attached to the email of customer signatures, where customers were saying, we are not alone. Me as an individual, I am concerned about my bank's fossil fuel financing, but it's me along with thousands of other customers that are concerned about their bank's fossil fuel financing. So this is a super exciting moment for this campaign. And now, that we've sent these emails, we're asking that the CEOs of these banks meet with us as customers and, answer the question, will you ignore thousands of customers, or will you finally stop financing fossil fuels and deforestation? So that was this morning, and now we've got lots in store for this campaign. Now that we have thousands of customers on board, we can really use this power and advocate for climate justice at our financial institutions and do everything possible to get these banks to change their policies. So our plan is to first, now that we've sent these letters to CEOs with thousands of signatures attached, next we're going to be targeting our bank's investors. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next part of this webinar. But investors are also a super critical part of making decisions at banks and steering the course of action at banks. So customers are now demanding that the investors of these banks, so investors like BlackRock, Vanguard, are investors in Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, that they vote the right way on climate resolutions at these banks. So now we have this letter to investors that's coming out where over 4,000 customers have already signed on. So we're going to be sending that to banks on April 12th, or sending that letter to investors on April 12th. And then we're going to be continuing organizing these customers. We want as many customers signing on to this campaign as possible, because the more customers that sign on to this campaign, the more power we will have to get these banks to do the right thing and to adopt these policies. And we're going to be organizing customers to sign on to this campaign, but we're also going to be organizing customers to do even more to advocate for climate justice. So not just sign on to these letters, but also send emails to CEOs, make phone calls, and meet with local branch managers and say, hey, I'm a concerned customer. Can you pass this off to management and let them know that customers are talking about this, that thousands of customers are now concerned that banks are funding fossil fuels. So if you are a customer of one of these banks, Citi, Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, this video is for you. We're going to play you a short 1-minute video, and then I'm going to give you 2 actions that you can do right now. Awesome. Thank you, Austin. Great. So so this is our launch video that we're using to get customers to sign on to the campaign and to take action. So share this video large and wide. But the first thing that we want you all to do, if you are a customer of this bank, is go to customersforclimatejustice.com. It only takes a minute to sign on, and then you'll be invited to every action that we're going to do in the future to have customers advocate for climate justice at their financial institution. So if you haven't already, make sure you go there and sign on to the letters to CEOs, because the more customers that we have signed on, the more powerful we're going to be together. And then one more action I have for you all, next slide, is to amplify the campaign. So the video you just saw is on this Twitter post. So go to this link, it'll bring you to the tweet we just put out this morning to amplify this amazing announcement that we have 35,000 customers who are advocating for climate justice at their financial institution. So definitely go check that tweet out, retweet it, like it, and share the video with anyone you know who's a customer of these banks. And if you're a customer, then definitely make sure to take action at customersforclimatejustice.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Really quickly, going to plug the fundraiser again. So far we have raised $1,300, and that makes us 13% of the way to our goal. So I know someone will drop the link to the fundraiser in the chat, but again, this is for the organizations that Roishetta and Nemo lead and organize. So one is the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, and the other is the Vessel Project. So the first one represents approximately 1,500 communities of Amazonian indigenous nationalities, and they organize to defend the rights of indigenous peoples and confront the social and environmental impacts of resource extraction in the Amazon. The COVID pandemic left many indigenous communities struggling to maintain their health while also dealing with the devastating impacts of extreme flooding caused by climate breakdown and oil spills in their territories. So that is one organization, and the other is the Vessel Project of Louisiana, which is a small mutual aid organization located in Southwest Louisiana that was founded in the aftermath of several climate disasters that ravaged the area. And they support vulnerable community members in finding safe shelter, housing, food, healthcare, and other expenses like medical and phone bills. So the Vessel Project provides 150 hot meals for low-income residents on the weekends, since other meal programs only run Monday to Friday. So those are the two amazing organizations that Nemo and Roishetta are representing today, and we implore you to continue to contribute to the fundraiser there. All right, so moving on to Shareholder Spring. Every spring, corporations hold their annual shareholder meetings. At these meetings, shareholders vote on shareholder resolutions, which provide direction for how a given company does business. They are often related to social issues, including climate, racial, and economic justice. For example, shareholder resolutions can ask a company to meet emissions reductions goals, disclose information about corporate governance, or increase the diversity of its board. Shareholder season is a critical moment to force companies to reduce their climate pollution and end the burden of fossil fuels on frontline communities. This year, we're focusing on the shareholder meetings of major US banks and insurance companies to stop the flow of money to fossil fuels. Next slide, please. Over the next 8 weeks, shareholders at every major US bank and several major insurance companies will vote on whether or not to align their business models with a 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway and end their support of fossil fuel expansion. This is a huge opportunity to force Wall Street to stop funding the climate crisis, but we need to make our voices heard. So our strategy is to push the major investors in banks and insurance companies to vote to stop fossil fuel expansion this shareholder season. Last year, the International Energy Agency, the world's most respected energy forecaster, came out with the world's most comprehensive study of what is required to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. It found that to even have a 50% chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, the goal of the Paris Agreement, we need to stop building new fossil fuel infrastructure immediately. This year, there are resolutions at all of the big banks and many of the country's largest insurance companies calling for Wall Street to align its business practices with the IAA report and immediately stop funding and insuring companies that are engaged in fossil fuel expansion. Next slide. When are the shareholder meetings? They run through April and May. There are a number here. We already had the Royal Bank of Canada's AGM. Sorry, it stands for Annual General Meeting. And the upcoming ones are Citibank, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, happening Tuesday, April 26th. And then there are many more in the following weeks. So now we will take some actions to support these resolutions. So our first one is going to be an email to asset managers, urging them to vote yes on resolutions at banks and insurers. And while we're taking these actions, we'll listen to a short song written by an 11-year-old climate activist, Femi Ramos Brown, as we take action, and then we'll come back together again. So the first action is emailing asset managers. There will be a link in the chat. And then the second action, we'll share a Google Doc with state treasurer info and a template email so that you can write an email to your state treasurer.
Yeah. There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
And show up.
Show up.
And show up.
Show up.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to. Ah! There's a way to find hope. Find hope. Take action.
Take action.
There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action. Take action.
And show up.
Show up.
And show up.
Show up.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to. Ah!
There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
And show up.
Show up.
And show up.
Show up.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to. Ah!
There's a way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
Way to find hope.
Find hope.
Take action.
Take action.
And show up.
Show up.
And show up.
Show up.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to.
And scream if you have to. Ah!
All right, thank you everyone for taking those actions. And now we're going to move on to our next speaker. So we're going to be joined by Terrell Ironshell, an Oglala Lakota and Eastern Band Cherokee from Rapid City, South Dakota. Terrell is dedicated to building and maintaining a strong, empowered generation of youth who are educated and prepared to take on the changing world. He is a distributed organizing support coach with Future Coalition, co-founder of the International Indigenous Youth Council, and a dedicated water protector and land defender. Thanks, Terrell, for being on.
Hello. Haumatakiapi, Chante Nape Chiuzapelo, Miniki Nakichizi Mie Na Terrell Mazapankeska Machiapelo, Yuchpe Amantaha. Greetings, everyone. I would first like to start by greeting each and every one of you with a warm and heartfelt handshake. My name is Terrell Ironshell, and I am right now in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I use he, him pronouns. I am a founder of the International Indigenous Youth Council and the Western distributed organizing support coach with Future Coalition. And I'm glad to be here with you guys tonight. And so I am here tonight also on behalf of the Youth Climate Finance Alliance. And so, you know, what we are is, you know, we're just like a group of young people all across the country. And so some of our goals are like to stop the harm that financial institutions and their alliances with corporations and make corporations pay by holding those financial institutions and the corporations liable for the harm that they're committing, as well as investing in the world that we want by just like reinvesting in economic sustainability and supporting alternative financial institutions. And so myself, along with other young people, so we're pretty much all over the country. A lot of the young people that I work with are like in the West Coast. A lot of them are like in the Midwest. So we have these like really tight knit groups of young people who are doing this like amazing work, you know, and they're just like, you know, they hit the ground running. We are doing, you know, just a lot of like, you know, just like really fun stuff, you know, there's a lot of like wheat pasting and, you know, stickering and just a lot of, you know, just like really exciting things that we're doing. And so one of the main things that we are working on now is this Youth Climate Finance Alliance letter to Jamie Dimon. And so we would like Jamie, you know, we want Jamie Dimon to know, you know, about our campaign and that the youth are pretty much, you know, coming for Chase. And so if you would like to, you know, help us and take action, you know, we have this this form that you can sign, you and your organization can sign on in support of our youth letter to Jamie Dimon. And we will be accepting sign-ons on the letter until 12 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, April 15th. So I hope you guys sign on, you know, and yeah, just would like to give a big shout out to all of the young people who, you know, are doing a lot of the work on the ground. And yeah, help Mtakasi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terrell. You and all of our friends at the Future Coalition are doing such awesome work to empower young people to fight the banks funding fossil fuels in their communities. As you all know, Wall Street and the fossil fuel industry have deep, deep pockets. And for us to build up the power to challenge those deep pockets, we really truly need a multiracial and a multi-generational movement. And so you just heard about a whole bunch of powerful organizing that Terrell and Future Coalition are doing to organize young people across the country. And now you're going to hear from Bill McKibben, whose new project, Third Act, is specifically focused on organizing an older generation of climate activists. As many of you know, Bill is a writer, author, and longtime climate movement leader. Bill wrote one of the first books about climate change for a wide audience in 1988. And since then, he helped found 350.org, wrote a dozen other books on climate change, as well as countless articles and essays. So let's hear from Bill about his new organization. Over to you, Bill.
Well, thank you so much. And what a pleasure to be with everybody. This has been a remarkable call. It's late in the evening, so I'm not going to go on long, but I just want to be able to say to everyone, extraordinary thanks for the work you're doing. This work's being led by the people that we've been seeing tonight, by frontline communities, Indigenous organizers, and as always, by young people. And it's a real pleasure to be able to bring some of us older people back in support of all this work. If you want to tell your grandparents about Third Act, do. Anybody over 60, we're trying to figure out how to make sure we bring the power of those 70 million Americans to bear on these most important of all issues. Look, this is the week to be talking about this, and this is the week to be pressing these banks in the biggest way. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change yesterday issued its landmark report. And when it came out, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, was most of the time diplomatic because he's the world's top diplomat, spoke very undiplomatically. He obviously was shaken by the conclusions of that report and shaken by everything we're seeing around us, like the fact that the temperature got to 70 degrees above normal in the Antarctic last month. And what he said was, At this point, to invest further in fossil fuels would be, and I quote, economically and morally insane. And yet that's precisely what Chase and Citi and Wells and B of A and the rest are busy trying to do. They're trying to make money off the end of the world. And it is disgusting, and we can stop it. We have lots of tools to stop it with. And this campaign around customers is a great first step. And right now, there's lots of support lining up behind it, in part because as people are beginning to find out, it was just these same banks that have backed the fossil fuel industry that also backed Vladimir Putin, made it possible for him to wage his war in Ukraine. I've been back and forth all last month with my great colleague in Ukraine, Svetlana Romanko, and she has said over and over again that we need to remember, even in the midst of this war, especially in the midst of this war, that fossil fuel has become a weapon of mass destruction. And it is these banks that are lighting the fuse on that weapon. And we have to take it out of their hands. That's what Stop the Money Pipeline Coalition is about. We can get some of this work done in Washington, but Washington works slowly and it's hard. So I'm awfully glad we're taking on Wall Street too, because that's the actual center of all of this. People talk a lot about capitalism. What we're talking about tonight with these banks is the capital at the heart of capitalism, the money that funds our destruction. So everybody, such good work, such powerful work, such solidarity. On we go, young and old, people from all over the world doing what we can to save this world. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Bill, for being here and for your words. And now we are going to ask you again to contribute to the fundraiser. And at this time, we have reached 2,800. So if we can, we would love to get that up a bit more before the end of the call. And again, this is for the Vessel Project and the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon. You can donate at the link provided in the chat, and that's also at stmp.link/fund, RAZER, fundraiser. And also a shout out to Cy Wagner for our amazing art tonight. Next slide. So before we wrap up, we just want to share a couple of updates from parts of the campaign. To start us up, we're less than halfway through the Defund Climate Chaos Week of Arts action, but already we're seeing hundreds of beautiful images of people putting the art up all over the country. And here are just a few of the images we've seen come in. And next slide, here's some banks that have been spotted out in the Pacific Northwest, in Seattle and Portland. If you want to sign up to get some art, you still can, and the links are in the chat box right now. Next slide. Last week we had the Defund Formosa Week of Action, and last week more than 100,000 signatures were delivered in Charlotte, San Francisco, and New York City, and we are also joined by our frontline partners and leaders in Rise St. James, which is in St. James, Louisiana. For more about the campaign, you can go to stopformosa.org/defund. And next slide. There's also a rally to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline on Thursday, April 7th at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on Zoom. And that is being hosted by POWHR. So as far as how to get involved after this call, you can organize an action. So organize a protest action at a bank, insurance company, or investor's office in your community. You can contact your state treasurer and ask them to vote yes on the critical climate resolutions this year. You can join the Customers for Climate Justice campaign. We meet regularly to plan our strategy and our next actions. Please join the team. You can take part in digital actions. So you can take part in regular calls to action that are sent to the SCMP mailing list and then share it widely. You can also join the Week of Arts action happening right now. If you already have art, you can get out and use it. And if you don't, it's not too late to sign up and get art sent to you. And you can also join the May Week of Action. We're organizing a Week of Action in May, the same week of JP Morgan Chase's annual general meeting, AGM. More details coming soon, but mark your calendars. And lastly, we can all take a last action to donate to support the front lines of climate justice. Once again, we have a goal to raise $5,000 for the Vessel Project and Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon. And right now we're at about 3,200. So hope that we can get up a little bit more. And the music tonight was provided by the People's Echo. We've gotten express permission to use this material, and we thank them and encourage you to follow the SoundCloud. Thank you all so much. Let's get it to 5,000 as we end the call.
I am in the right place. I am in the right time. I am with the right you, babe. We got this. I am in the right